for worldwide decarbonization. From now on, we will accelerate the target. Japan, in order to create a virtuous cycle of the economy and the environment and to grow strongly towards our ambitious goal for 2030, will work to maximize the utilization of decarbonized power sources such as renewable energy and take incentive measures sufficient for inducing investment by companies. The national and subnational governments of Japan will work together to aim for achieving decarbonization in more than 100 subnational regions across the country by 2030. Japan will also work for the realization of innovation that will enhance production and secure sustainability in food, agriculture, and the forestry sectors. Furthermore, Japan will advance the transition to a circular economy, thereby creating new industries and employment. Japan will continue its unceasing efforts toward 2030 and 2050.
Global decarbonization is what cannot be achieved by the efforts of one country alone. It is a challenge that requires the whole international community to be united as one. We can create
our deliberations for establishing concrete measures toward achieving
address the impacting vulnerable states in the world. No other time than now does international society require further solidarity for the realization of a decarbonized society. Japan, as a nation that puts utmost importance on multilateral approaches, is determined to take the lead in solving the challenge of climate change for the whole of humankind by cooperating with each country and international organizations for the coming months leading up to COP26 and beyond. Thank you for your attention.
Pleasure to call upon the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I want to begin by thanking President Biden for hosting this summit. Mr. President, thank you for your leadership on addressing the climate crisis and on other shared priorities, from the fight against COVID-19 to building a strong middle class. I'm encouraged to see so many countries coming together today to fight climate change. It's the only way to overcome the challenges people face in every part of our world. That's why it's also vital that we all work together to strengthen respect for international law, reaffirm our collective commitment to human rights, and stand up for people who face persecution abroad. Our collective success depends on finding a better path, not only to a more sustainable future, but to shared peace and prosperity for everyone. Notre priorité continue d'être notre lutte.
Our priority continues to be combating COVID-19. We rely on science to save lives and develop vaccines, but we must also listen to climate science, which tells us that we are facing an existential threat.
We must take action against a polluted planet. When Canadians elected us 5 years ago, our emissions were projected to keep rising through 2030. But with hard work and a solid plan, Canada is now on track to blow past our old target of 30% reduction below 2005 levels. Last December, we strengthened our climate plan to reduce more emissions, including with a world-leading price on pollution. This week, we made additional investments in the budget, and today, Canada is in a position to raise our climate ambition once again. Our new climate target for 2030 is to reduce our 2005 emission levels by 40 to 45%. And we will continually strengthen our plan and take even more actions on our journey to net zero by 2050. Seules les politiques climatiques sérieuses donnent des résultats.
Only bold climate policies lead to bold results. For example, you can no longer pollute in Canada for free. In 2030, our carbon price will reach $170 per ton.
Climate ambition and economic ambition go together. That's why we're investing in public transit, clean energy, retrofitting homes, and decarbonizing industry like steel, cement, and aluminum to secure our clean industrial advantage. We're also banning harmful single-use plastics, protecting 30% of our oceans and land, and planting 2 billion trees. And we will make it law to respect our new 2030 target and achieve net zero emissions by 2050. That's our local story. And it could be part of a global success story too. In Canada, we've worked hard to get to over 80% emissions-free electricity, and we're not going to stop until we get to 100%. If major economies in the room were to follow Canada's lead and adopt a rising price on pollution and commit to phase out coal plants, we would accelerate our global path for a safe, prosperous net zero future. Le Canada est un pays qui produit et exporte de l'énergie.
Canada is a country that produces and exports energy. And so I understand that this will not be easy. We are all facing different realities, but if all governments and indigenous peoples and different sectors can all come together and work together, then we should be able to find solutions and create real change. And that is why we're here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. I now call upon the Prime Minister of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina. Madam Prime Minister.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable President Joe Biden, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Excellencies, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I thank President Biden for convening the summit and inviting me to speak to this August gathering. Bangladesh deeply appreciates the United States' return to the Paris Climate Agreement and is keen to engage with the international community. Excellencies, despite being a climate vulnerable country with resource constraints, Bangladesh has emerged as a global leader on adaptation and mitigation. Every year, we are spending on an average $5 billion US, about 2.5% of our GDP, on climate adaptation and resilience building measures. The 1.1 million forcefully displaced Rohingyas from Myanmar, whom we have sheltered, worsened our vulnerability. Bangladesh is pursuing a low-carbon development path to raise our national determined contribution, NDC, and adaptation ambition. We have included new sectors in addition to the existing energy, industry, and transport sectors in the mitigation process. We are planning to submit a quantified, ambitious NDC by June 2021. Excellencies, Bangladesh is observing Mujib Year, marking the birth centenary of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. We are planting 30 million saplings nationwide and adopted Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan to achieve low-carbon economy growth. As the chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum and B20, Bangladesh's key focus is to uphold the interest of the climate vulnerable countries. We are hosting the South Asian Regional Office of the Global Center on Adaptation, which is promoting locally led adaptation solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that global crises can only be addressed through a strong collective response. As such, as a responsible member state of the COP and as the chair of CBA, I would like to make few suggestions. Number one, immediate and ambitious action plan by developed countries to reduce their carbon emissions to keep the global temperature rise at 1.5 degrees Celsius. The developing nations should also focus on mitigation measures. Number two, ensuring the annual target of $100 billion US, which should be balanced 50-50 between adaptation and mitigation with special attention to the vulnerable countries while pursuing loss and damage. Number 3, major economies, international financial institutions, and private sectors should come forward for concessional climate financing as well as innovation. And number 4, focus is needed on green economy and carbon neutral technologies with provision to technology transfer among nations. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Madam Prime Minister. It's now a pleasure to call upon the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Her Excellency Angela Merkel. Madam Chancellor.
Ja, sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, lieber Joe Biden.
Mr. President, dear Joe Biden, dear colleagues, I'm delighted to see that the United States is back to work together with us in climate politics, because there can be no doubt about the world needing your contribution if we really want to fulfill our ambitious goals. And the national contribution of the United States for 2030 is a clear illustration of your ambitions. That is a very clear and important message to the international community. Thank you for this, and thank you for organizing this summit. This is a Herculean task, because this is nothing short of a complete transformation, a complete change of the way we do business, the way we work. And Germany, as you know, has already reduced its emissions by 40 compared to 2019 and the 1990, and the European Union will be climate neutral by 2050, and we want to at least have 55% less emissions by 2030 compared to 1990. At the beginning of this week, the EU adopted an agreement that sets this target as a binding one into law, and we as Germany will obviously give our contribution. We have actually described a policy that sets out a pathway towards climate neutrality. We think that CO2 pricing is the right way forward. That is why we have introduced a national emissions trading for transport and heating, thus so far for sectors that have not been covered by EU emissions trading. Coal has been for us a very important resource, but by the latest, and I heard Antonio Guterres on that, by the very latest, by 2038, we will phase out coal electrification, and we will invest further into renewables. Already last year, we have produced electricity 46% of our electricity from renewables, and we want to increase that. The necessary economic recovery after the pandemic is something that we also want to use for innovation, for technology. So we invest in renewables instead of in coal, and we also see to it that the loss of biodiversity all over the world is stopped. We think that we need to place 30% of the global land and marine surface under protection. We need primarily solidarity with the developing countries. As industrialized countries, we have committed ourselves to mobilize by 2020 an annual amount of $100 billion, and this is to be followed up by an extension until at the very least 2025. Germany has doubled its financing by 2022, 4 billion euros per year, and we're going to continue to contribute our fair share to this. With all of these measures, we, I think, underline very clearly that we are interested in a success of COP26 in Glasgow this year, and obviously also COP15 in Kunming, where we're talking about preserving biodiversity. And in line with its tradition, Germany is going to host, together with the United Kingdom, the 12th Petersburg Climate Dialogue this year, and we're going to prepare Glasgow. Thus, we are an active member, and we're very much looking forward to cooperating with all of you.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Merkel. It's now a pleasure to call upon the President of the French Republic, His Excellency Emmanuel Macron. Monsieur le Président.
Mesdames et messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement.
Thank you.
Mesdames et messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le Président des États-Unis, cher Joe Biden, merci avant toute chose de nous avoir réunis aujourd'hui. Je veux saluer l'annonce de la contribution américaine. C'est un choix historique sur le chemin qui nous mène vers Glasgow. Je veux saisir cette occasion pour saluer aussi votre décision de rejoindre l'amendement de Kigali pour la réduction des gaz HFC. Il y a quelques jours, avec Madame la chancelière Merkel, nous nous sommes entretenus avec le président Xi Jinping qui s'est engagé aussi en ce sens. Il conviendra aussi que tous ensemble, nous engagions le combat pour réduire les émissions de méthane. Nous avançons. Un seul objectif dans les prochaines semaines et les prochains mois.
I now turn the floor to the President of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Vladimir Putin.
Précis, mesurable, vérifiable. Au fond, 2030 est le nouveau 2050. C'est ce plan que l'Union européenne a mis sur la table en décembre, traduite dans une loi climat européenne, avec le Green Deal pour lui donner corps. À nous donc maintenant de...
The floor is now to the President of the Russian Federation, Mr. Vladimir Putin. Mr. President.
Mr. President, colleagues, ladies, gentlemen, our discussion today demonstrates how deeply we all share the concern with regard to global climate change and how much we're all interested in redoubling the international effort to address this issue. Whether this effort proves successful will largely determine the future of our planet, the development prospects of each country, as well as the well-being and quality of life of our citizens. We believe there is a solid legal framework for international collaboration into